Hello, class. This is a video that is going to explain how to use the agenda and the content at the same time. We're going to discuss personal essays within Unit 1, Activity 2. But really, what I want you to be thinking about is you're going to be inundated with a lot of information while you're trying to do this all on your own. So, what I want you to think about is the agenda that I provide in the announcements is there as extra resources that are not necessarily included in the content. Not everybody will need all of the information that's here, but because we're asynchronous, where you might be logging on at a different time, I want to make sure that you have tutorials, instructions, or even worksheets that could help you focus what it is the activities are asking you to do. So, not that I want you necessarily using one or the other. I'm hoping that what the agenda does is it outlines what specifically you should be thinking about for that one day and what you could be accomplishing within that day, knowing what's sort of coming forward. So when I look at Unit 1, Activities 1 and 2, Unit 1, Activity 1 was all about introducing you to a theme as well as introducing the course culminating activity. So there's just a little bit of a review there. And because all of Unit 1 is about a theme, I've created a video just to introduce a little bit more about what that theme is. If we look to the content, there's more information there. So this is simply for anyone who just wants to watch through the video, have a tutorial or an instructional, that's available here. So in Unit 1, Activity 2, we are going to be looking at personal essays. And so what I've created is this video will actually be found right here. And then I've got some additional resources right here, just so that this isn't provided in the content. You can read through that and fully comprehend all of these. These are additional resources and to help guide you through what you're supposed to accomplish. So you've got essays that you're going to be reading, and there's a practice one and then a second practice one. And then what you have down below here is some more information about reader responses or literary theories that we're going to watch right here. It'll give you a little bit more information to a particular part. I'll talk about that. And then we've got bonus practice activities. You can write your own personal essay. And there'll be a video that will be attached there later today explaining that if you would like to do it. And then there is a discussion to participate. It tells you where to go, and then you're getting into your CCA novel. So these are the items that you can look through here and know what you're supposed to accomplish given a day. Or if you miss a day, that you can look back through that agenda, know what you have to accomplish, and then moving on to the next day. So this is meant to help you in terms of what the items are that you need to accomplish, but also the additional resources that you may or may not use. I create them so that you at least have a sense that there is someone there helping you along, or maybe these worksheets or these videos might help you a little bit more than the content that is provided. So without further ado, let's get into Unit 1, Activity 2. Just reminding you that the content is really important. That's where all the information is. That's where the links are to the essays that we're going to be reading. That the announcements is a great start, but we want to make sure we're accessing that content. All right, so we're going to go into Unit 1, Activity 2, and we're going to open it up here. So Unit 1 is all about storytelling, and we're getting into the themes and ideas and concepts. So remember I told you in the introductory video, this course is all about reading text, annotating for meeting, and then demonstrating your analysis. So what we have here are some stories and thinking about. So these are things that we could do in our notebook that we are looking through and making notes on. And these will all help us. I've got a video on these two concepts up above, so we're not going to necessarily focus on that. As we go through and we're looking at the themes of resiliency, we're going to come into personal essays. So our very first practice essay is an essay called The Story sorry, the step not taken. And we're going to read through that essay. And these are some things that as you're reading an essay, you want to be thinking about. So we're going to ask ourselves some questions, figure out the pace. Remember that if we're annotating and we're thinking about it, we're going to slow down that reading. And sometimes what happens is when we slow it down, we sometimes lose the meaning and we have to go back and adjust our pace so that we can figure out what's going on or anticipate what's coming up next. Okay, so there's just some guidelines. And one of the big things that I want you to be focusing on early on is that we're going to be looking at taking notes, annotations. So either highlighting, underline, and I'm going to show you an example of where we are going to be using potentially a Google Doc, whatever works best for you, and highlighting and making comments in the side as to what we're thinking about. So in these little drop-down guides, there's annotating, a quick guide. There's some more resources in here. And we've got access to the step not taken. So we're going to read it one time and we're going to be thinking about all of these things. So to make sure, you should be reading more than once to establish meaning and to maybe pick up on things that you didn't pick up the first time that you read it. So we can access the step not taken by clicking on this little link right there. And it will bring us to, it's a web page. I wanted to let you know that not everybody can read and access this on the web page and do the things that it asks you to do. Maybe reading the first time through is great, and maybe you want to take notes off to the side on a piece of paper or whatever it might be. That I've also, in that agenda, I've actually created a Google Doc. So I've opened it right here. So what you can do is while you're reading through or making meaning, that you can highlight and then make a comment over on the side. Okay, so you can go through the very first time you read and make initial comments on those, and it will actually save it for you. So in this activity, the second or third time that you read through, it's asking you to choose one of these two strategies. So after you've gone through and wrote down some ideas, maybe you use the Cornell method that was introduced up top, that there are two ways that you can actually examine that essay. And so it's looking at the introduction, the thesis. And what I really like about this in terms of doing this for the first time is it actually shows you, if you were to go back to that essay, it shows you what they've identified as the thesis or the introduction, the thesis, evidence to support that. And so it can give you an example as to what each of those are. And I really like that. So it's not necessarily asking you to do that, but what I would do is when it says introduction, that you figure out if you can identify what the introduction is. If you were to identify what the thesis is, that you think about that first, maybe even jot down some notes and see if you're on the right track. So that's the purpose of that strategy. The second reading strategy is breaking up your essay into paragraphs. And so they have this little chart where you select paragraph number 1, or you can even do paragraph 1 to 3. And then you select the text and then put it into the little box. And your job is not to do much with it in terms of analysis, but you're looking for what would you title this selection, and explain why you would give it that title, and what its purpose is. And so the example is the title that they would give paragraph number 1 is Getting on an Elevator and the reason for that. Okay, so there's two strategies after you've gone through the reading strategies up here about how to read an essay the first, second, or third time, and some other reading strategies that you can choose from, either A or B. Okay, the other thing that they want you to do is to understand and make note of mood, tone, and diction. And so each of these is identifying them. So I'd like you to try and identify what is the mood or the tone, and how do you know that using the diction. They've actually provided it for you. So see if you're on the right track. And all of these are important steps because what they're going to do is they're actually going to show you how to read an essay and to analyze and pick up on these components. Then, after you've identified mood, tone, and diction, they want you to complete these reflection questions, and these can go in your notebook. So let's review. So in addition to these general guidelines, when you're thinking about reading a personal essay, right, to slow down and to think about it, then after reading it once, go through and read a second time or third time and choose one of these two strategies, and you can check it with the step not taken. Then at the end of it, you've got some reflection questions. So after you've practiced that once, as we scroll down, they actually want you to do it again. Only this time, you're not necessarily going to have those same guidelines. So you're going to choose, you can actually pick them. Here's a little excerpt to see if that's the one you want. And when you've picked the one out of these four that you would like to do, you can click right there. I have not created this in a Google Doc, but if you do like that strategy where you can highlight and make comments, then what you can do is actually copy and paste it into a Google Doc for yourself. So you can access it here from a web page and then copy that text and put it in there. And what you're going to do is the exact same strategies. So you are going to read it one time and you're going to be thinking about all those things. You're going to read it a second and third time, and you're going to choose one of the two strategies in which to do that. So just to remind you, I've created a worksheet that you can use one of those two strategies and fill it in. So I've actually created that in the agenda. You can click right here and it will open up this document here. So you can choose the first one. So I took a screenshot just so you would recognize it. And then you can fill in the information here. If you didn't like this particular one, then you can use this. So identifying which paragraphs you're using, copy and paste the text into here and then give it a title and explanation. And right down below, so you can actually delete, when you make your own copy of this, you can delete either strategy 1 or strategy 2, whichever one you didn't use. And then there are the reflection questions that you can simply answer them. So this is just for practice. This is not to submit, but if you have questions, don't hesitate to ask me. I'm happy to help you along the way. And so this is why and how using the agenda alongside the content. I didn't have the video posted in here. I didn't have the worksheet posted in here because for many of you, you don't want that. You just want to read top to bottom to know exactly, you know that you're supposed to be working through Unit 1, Activity 2, and you're just going to plug along as you go through and figure out your own system. And that's perfectly acceptable. But for those of you who need a little bit more guidance or prefer to have videos or instructionals, I have provided those within the schedule in the agenda. So feel free to pop in here. And if there's anything that you can't access, please let me know. In addition to that, if you still have additional questions, there is no such thing as feeling silly that you don't understand what you're supposed to do, because that's why I'm here. I'm going to help you. So email me either within the VLE, or you can find my email addresses in Gmail. You can also find it in the announcements where I posted it. Okay, so don't hesitate to reach out and I will get back to you as soon as I can.